You guys, my name is Sandra Shimkus, and I based my Proceed paper on unprotected intercourse among teens. I actually took a sex education class for my undergrad, and I learned so much during that class that I distinctly remember telling my professor, oh my God, this class should be offered like at a high school level. It was just such a good informative class. So this particular topic really struck a nerve with me. I really felt connected to the topic because of how much I learned. And, I'm so much older than the teens and I'm just now learning. I was, just now learning a lot of that information. So, just starting right off the bat with why unprotected sex in teens is a health issue. Now, of course, it's the obvious things, pregnancy, teen pregnancies are more high risk. And then, of course, how a pregnancy can change the trajectory of your life. That in itself is a big enough health issue. And then, of course, any issues the fetus may have as well and all of that. But, also the issue of STIs. And yes, there are more treatment options available. There have been great advances in terms of HIV treatment and all of that. But there's still no cure. Herpes is a forever thing. And the main reason that unprotected sex among teens and among everyone really is a health issue is because of how grand the consequences are. There is no going back from a pregnancy. There is no going back from, herpes or HIV diagnosis. These are really serious things for a very at-risk population. Now, the interest population here is teens, not just teens here in the US, but teens everywhere. Through no fault of their own, because of the lack of development of their frontal lobes, teens do tend to have impulse control issues. So we should offer them some, a little bit of grace, but that makes them a little bit more high risk because, they are going to make decisions that are a little bit more reckless. So it's going to be really important for us to arm them with as many tools as we can so that they can make those decisions. It's really important for us to note that there are a lot of social and behavioral determinants as to why anyone really, but specifically teens, might make the decision to have unprotected sex. And this is where science has a really big task. They have to bridge the gap between social, cultural, religious, and geographical issues. Here's where sticking to the facts and maybe not treating sex like a taboo topic and just kind of making sure that we're opening, that whatever intervention program is in place is just a safe, open place for them to ask all their questions is going to be very important. Besides, the information that a teen might get about sex is going to be different if they live in the Bible Belt of the US versus if they live in an area that, is not as conservative about this particular topic. And then, of course, it's really important to note that we all know that people in lower socioeconomic areas, they're not only are the consequences going to weigh more heavily, but also maybe the information that they get is not the same as the information that the kids in Highland Park are getting. It's socioeconomic status is a very, very big determinant of the quality of education that you're getting and the options that you have should things go south. Even with something like a pregnancy, whatever choice you make in terms of a pregnancy, for example, it's expensive either way. Someone who has the means to make that decision it's going to be, easier for them than someone who doesn't. And understanding why teens engage in unprotected sex to begin with is really important and what options they have in terms of contraception or, education about the topic in general is going to be really important in order to set forth a successful intervention to begin with. So looking at all those reasons is really, really important. And there's a lot of them. So science definitely has a big issue here in trying to bridge the gap between so many arenas in this particular topic, because it's so polarizing and because it's so controversial. But sticking to the science and sticking to the facts is just honestly the best way to get across all of those bridges, you know? Now, the program goal and the intervention that I was looking at was never to stop teens from having sex. It's just not going to happen. Teens are going to have sex. We just want to make sure that we're arming them with the tools so that they can engage in safe sex practices. Data has shown that the lack of sex education leads to more teen pregnancies. And also, and it's one of the studies that I mentioned in my paper, when kids receive sex education, it's not like they magically turn into, you know, promiscuous bunnies or anything, you know, the increasing their knowledge on sex education did not lead to increased sexual activity. That is a very common misconception, that people think that, you know, if you start telling these kids about sex and talking to them about it, it's going to make them want to run and go do it. That's actually not, that has been proven to not be the case. The goal is always going to be to arm them with the tools to make good decisions about sex. It's not to stop them from doing it. It's the same concept. And it's very unfortunate that sex is so polarizing, and it's just it's considered such a controversial topic, because it really should be no different than when, you know, a teenager has to go get their driver's license. They have to prove that they understand traffic laws so that they can be safe on the road. It's the exact same thing with sex. Maybe we should like have a test that kids have to take before they can have sex, right? Like when the second they turn like 14, they have to take a sex education test. Nobody steal that idea. I'm totally gonna set that into place, because it really should be no different than, like I said, you know, doing them taking a driver's license test. It's about, the end goal is to keep them safe. They are the future, and we're just trying to make sure that we're arming them with the right tools so that they can make these decisions, they can make better decisions. But of course, we also, just a little minor note here, just because we're arming them with the tools, with the information, doesn't mean that that's it. We also have to facilitate access to these things like contraceptives. Contraceptives can be expensive. So offering affordable contraception and along with information about safe sex practices is just as important. So that is it for my presentation. If you guys have any questions, I'll answer them in the discussion box.